Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
First Peter chapter 2 is going to be our text. If you have a Bible, please turn to First Peter chapter 2. And while you're doing that, I just want to say a couple of things. For those of you who may not be here tomorrow, I want to thank everybody for being here today. And I tell you how much I appreciate you and how much you encourage me, and just what an awesome job I think you're doing in your relationship with God. I really, really appreciate you, and it's just been good to be with you today. And I know you're tired, and I thought, Dean's not tired. Okay, everybody else is tired. 10-year-olds don't get tired. So I know you're tired, and I thought about, what I could do to maybe get a little bit more interesting for you. Cornerstone didn't seem to have any problem, so I thought about calling Morgan Greenwood up here and preaching it to her like they were singing, the girls. I thought that might keep your interest, or pictures and stuff being taken. I thought about beatboxing the passage instead of just reading it, but probably not. So I'm just going to do what I do. And just give me 30 minutes, and I think I've probably driven Rob and Andy crazy because they give me an hour. I don't think I've ever preached longer than 45 minutes in my whole lifetime. I just don't know how to preach long. And so I'm sorry if I mess schedules up and all of that. I just don't know how to, believe it or not, talk very long. So if you give me 30 minutes and hang with me for 30 minutes, I'm pretty sure I'm going to let you go in that time. If I get going, and start spitting and sweating, it may be a little bit longer than that, but yeah, y'all may want to move over. Hang in there with me, and we'll get through this in just a little bit. But I really appreciate you hanging in there, being tired. You're still here. I was kidding. I'm not really going to spit. I'll spit over here. So thank you for everything you are and what you do, and just for being here and hanging in with us. To say that I'm bad with directions is a really bad understatement. Yesterday, while the boys still had the boys' bathroom back there before it was taken over by the selfish girls, when we still had the bathroom back there, at least twice, I went the wrong way coming out of the boys' bathroom. That's how bad I am with directions. I'm really stinky with directions. And so whenever I go somewhere that I haven't been, and sometimes when I go somewhere that I have been, I really got to be sure that I know where I'm going. And so I'll ask somebody, how do you get there? And so I got what they tell me, and then I'll go to the internet and I'll print it off of Google directions, and then I've got a GPS also. And so I've got what somebody told me, what I printed off, and I've got the GPS, because I'm horrible with directions. I need something to tell me exactly where I am, where I'm supposed to be going, what I'm supposed to be looking for, how am I going to know when I get there. I need all of that stuff to make it very clear to me, because I don't do well with vague, you'll know it when you see it, or you can't miss it, because I can most definitely miss it. My hotel is 7 minutes from here. And I asked Andy last night how to get there, and when he said go out of the parking lot, I was lost. I had no idea what he said after that, so thank goodness for the GPS. I've got to have very clear directions. One reason I love 1 Peter chapter 2 is because it gives us very clear direction about who we are and what we're supposed to be doing as Christians. Now, what is a mission statement? Have you ever heard this term, mission statement? What does that mean? Who knows what that means, a mission statement? What is that? Someone? Yeah. It's what you want to get accomplished. It's a very clear, plain statement of what it is that has to be done. Somebody give me a mission statement for the Christian. What do you think would be a good mission statement for the child of God? Anybody give me something. Spread the word. Short, concise, to the point. I love it. What? Yes, ma'am. Leading people to Christ. Yes, ma'am. Studying the Bible more. That's a very good mission statement. All of these things are very good. You need to understand that God has a very definite plan for your life. And I'm not saying that the way that a lot of people say it. I think a lot of people misunderstand what it means for God to have a plan for your life. A lot of people have this idea that when we say that God has a plan for your life, it means He's got every specific step that you're supposed to take. He knows where you're supposed to go when you get out of school, what job you're supposed to have, who you're supposed to marry. And if you mess it up at any of those points, you've blown the whole thing. I know people who live in fear because they're scared. Am I supposed to be in this job? Am I supposed to be doing this? Or should I have moved there and done that? Should I have married this person? Should we not have had kids, had one more kid? Should I be living in this house? Does God want me to live in that house? Listen, it doesn't matter where you go to school. It doesn't matter what job you do. It doesn't matter. Those things that are irrelevant. God has a plan for your life, and it's the same as His plan for my life. And that's what He's going to talk about in this passage. And whether you're a garbage man, or you're a cop, or you're an accountant, or you're an ex-Marine, or you're whatever else somebody in here might be. I don't know what Rob and Andy do. Does anybody know what they do for a living? I have never been clear on what they do for a living. Whatever that is, it doesn't matter. As long as you're fulfilling the plan that we're going to talk about in 1 Peter chapter 2, this is God's plan for your life. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. So let's do that. First of all, I want you to notice He's going to talk about who we are. Okay? He's going to talk about who we are. In 1 Peter chapter 2 and in verse 9. Somebody read 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 9. I'll tell you when to stop. Stop. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead. 1 Peter 2:9. Go ahead. All right, let's stop right there for just a second. This passage tells us who we are. Now, I hate your special sermons. I hate that kind of thing. I hate this kind of, positive self-talk where you're supposed to look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself every day just how special you are and how important you are and how wonderful you are. I hate that kind of stuff. But this is kind of what Peter is doing here. In this passage, Peter is telling us just how special we are. And there are a lot of people who need to hear that. There are a lot of people who need to hear how much they matter. Because there are some people who don't matter where they live. They don't matter at home. They really don't matter that much to their parents. And they feel like they don't matter where they go to school. And they feel like they don't have a lot of friends who really care about them. A lot of people feel like they don't much matter. And what you need to understand is, you do matter. You're important. You're a very important person. And especially if you are a Christian, you are a vitally important and special person. You're a child of God, the most important, special, unique person in the whole world. And that's what Peter's doing here. He's trying to encourage us as Christians to know who we are. And what he says is, you belong to an important and very special group of people. It's really cool to belong to a special group of people. How many of you have ever been on a championship sports team of some kind? You won some kind, then put your hand in. There is no way in the world anybody here is going to believe that a team with you on it is going to win anything. So keep your hand down. All right, who wants to tell the truth? All right, what sport? What sport? Really? I was expecting football. What sport? Cross country. That's awesome, man. What sport? Very nice. Yes, sir. Oh man, nice. Yes, sir. Like it. Okay. Morgan, really? What? Nice. Yes, sir. There you go. Yes, sir. Cross country. Awesome. Yes, sir. Nice. Oh, well, there's a new one. That's awesome. It is awesome. Do you realize how few people, and this is a really special group with all of these people, do you realize how few people ever get to be on a championship team of any kind? It's a really special thing. I coach JV basketball where my kids go to school. It's a very small private school, and you've never heard of it. You'll never hear of it in the broad scheme of things. It's a tiny little school that nobody will ever hear of. The conference we play in is a tiny little conference of private schools that doesn't matter anyway. But a couple of years ago, the JV team that I coached went and won our conference championship. That doesn't mean much to you, big deal, whoop-de-doo, it's a small school, never heard of, who cares? Let me tell you something. I still am pumped up from being a part of a championship team. That's awesome to me. You need to understand that as a Christian, you are part of an amazing, special, unique, awesome group of people. You're part of the family of God. And he's going to use a lot of words to tell us about that. The first thing he says in verse 9 is, you are chosen. You're chosen. I hope that you don't know what it's like, what it feels like to not be chosen. You're going to find this hard to believe. Now, I'm glad you're sitting down because you're going to be shocked at this. When I was in middle school, I was always the last person picked for sports teams in PE. I know. It's stunning. I know. You're going, wow, this physical specimen? You got to be kidding me. Man, nobody wanted me, man. I mean, they would get into fist fights about who had to take me. I mean, I was horrible at stuff. I know what it's like. Now, at this point, you're supposed to go, oh, you know, thank you very much. Glad somebody cares. But it hurts to be a person that nobody wants to choose. Maybe you know how that feels in some way. It hurts to be a person that nobody wants to pick. He says that you are a chosen race. Who chose you? Who chose you? God did. God picked you. You are chosen by God. That makes you something important and special. Then what does he say? You are a what kind of priesthood? Royal. That's exactly right. What little girl hasn't dreamed of being a princess and getting swept on? You still do. You still have a Disney princess cover on your bed, and I don't want to hear any different about that. Every little girl dreamed about being a princess and marrying the prince and going off in the carriage. I don't know. You know you did, right? And guys dream about being the king who goes out and slays the dragon. How cool it is, right? My daughter is still a big Disney princess. She's 13. She still sleeps under a Disney princess blanket. She loves the royals. She just gets all googly, you know, when they talk about Prince Harry and Prince William and baby Prince King George or whatever he is. Oh, isn't Kate so lovely? And isn't all? She just loves that stuff. Who hasn't dreamed of being royalty? If you're a Christian, what does he say? You're royalty. You're royalty. You are a royal priesthood. What's a priest? What is a priest? It is a teacher of the Word of God. What else? What else does a priest do? A priest is part of, by definition, is part of a very select, small group of people who are by their nature closer to God, in closer proximity to Him than other people, and share a special relationship with Him. You, if you are a Christian, are part of a royal priesthood. Peter is trying to tell you how special you are. Then what does he say? A chosen race, a royal priesthood, what? What? What is it? A holy nation. What does the word holy mean? People think the word holy means good. Or they think the word holy means pure. It doesn't mean that. Who knows what the word holy means? It means set apart. It means different from everything else that's around it. Who wants to be, how many people we got in the world now? 7 billion, is that right? Who wants to be just one in 7 billion people? Don't we all want to be different? Don't we want to be set apart? Don't we want to be unique in some kind of way? I think about how dopey I was when I was a kid, when I was in high school, the things I did to try to be different. I'd put a bandana around my leg and go out wearing a bandana because nobody else did that. Well, there's a reason nobody else did that. It was dopey. I would go out with one pants leg pulled up to my knee and the other one down. And my mom would say, "You look like an idiot. Why are you doing that? It's different." Right? I got an earring when I was in college before most guys were getting. Most guys didn't have that. I got one because I wanted to be different. I'm so glad that I've gotten past that thing where I have to do something with my appearance to make me different from other people. I really am glad I've matured past that. But we all want to be different. We don't want to be just one of 7 million. We want to stand out. And so he says, as Christians, that's exactly what you do. You are a people for God's own possession. Okay? You're important. If you're a child of God, you really are somebody. So, how did we get that way? This is very important for us to understand. If you're not a Christian tonight, you need to understand how you can become part of that special group. If you are a Christian, you also need to understand it, and we'll see why. So let's notice what he says. Verses 6 and 7. In verses 6 and 7, he says that the first thing we to be convinced he's God's Son and what? And he rose from the dead, so we're convinced that he is who he said he was. He did what the Bible says that he did. We believe that he existed. We believe that he is God. We believe he did what the Bible says. That's exactly right. Now, notice what else he says in verse 4. Not only do we believe in him, but he says we come to him. We leave where we are in sin and we go to Christ. So we believe in him, we go to him, and then he says in verse 8 that we obey him. Now notice what it's all about, and this is very important. It's all about him. It's all about Jesus. It's all about believing him, going to him, and obeying him. It's all about him. Why is it that as Christians sometimes we get so arrogant about being saved when other people are lost? Why is it sometimes that as Christians we are so haughty about how good we are, we look down on other people for how they are when the only reason we're saved is because of him? You know, when I was growing up, I was around a lot of rich kids that went to my high school, and a lot of those kids were really arrogant. There's nothing wrong with being rich. There's nothing at all. I'm not saying it's wrong to be rich. It isn't. But I was around a lot of rich kids who were really arrogant and looked down on me because I didn't have what they had. Why were they arrogant? You know, what 12-year-old ever made the $1 million that his family had? His parents made it. He didn't make it. Why is he arrogant? But as Christians, we do the same thing. As Christians, we get arrogant because of what God did for us. Why are we arrogant? It's all about him. And so we need to understand that. A person who isn't a Christian needs to understand that. How do you become a Christian? You believe in Jesus. You are convinced that what the Bible says about him is true. You leave your sinful lifestyle and you go to him and you obey him. What is it that we're supposed to be doing? 2 verses about this and we're done. Verse 5. Look at 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 5. You also, as living stones, are being built up as a spiritual house for a holy priesthood to do what? To offer up spiritual sacrifices. What do you think the sacrifices are that God expects you to offer? Lambs, bulls, birds, grain. That's what they did in the Old Testament. What are the sacrifices that God expects you to give?
Your life.
Okay, to give up things for him, to sacrifice bad things. What else? Somebody said, your whole life. Right? When you get up in the morning and you begin to live your life, you're giving that as worship to God. Too many people connect religion with this building or some building like it. This is where religion happens. This is where we go to do our thing with God. And so we put in those 2 or 3 or 4 hours a week for God at his building, and then we go out there, and who does that belong to? That's mine. Because I've done the God thing in his building. Now I'm going to go live my life. Too many people connect religion with a building like this. This is not where religion happens. This is not where worship happens. This is not where our relationship with God happens. You don't have to be a preacher to do God's work. You don't have to be an elder or a youth minister to do God's work. I had a very good friend of mine who was a manager at Kroger. Y'all have Kroger around here? No Kroger around here? You do have Kroger around here. All right, very good. It's a grocery store. A friend of mine worked at Kroger. He was a manager. And he talked to me several times, and he said, I don't feel like I'm doing anything for God. I'm just a manager at Kroger. I'm just managing a grocery store. I need to be doing something for God. And so, he's thinking about preaching. He's thinking about missionary. He's thinking about doing all these things. As if what he was doing, the life he was living, the light he was shining, the people he was influencing, like that was doing nothing for God. This is not where we do things for God. This is part of it. But worship happens wherever the Christian is. Everything you do is worship to God. Everything you do is a sacrifice to Him. Also notice verse 9. In verse 9, once again. In verse 9 he says, "You are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for God's own possession, so that." What does the phrase "so that" do? So that what? What does that phrase do? You are this, so that this. He's going to tell us what to do. You are a chosen race for what purpose? What does he say? So that you may proclaim the excellencies of Him who has called you out of darkness into His marvelous light. God's purpose for you as a Christian is to proclaim how awesome He is. To who? Proclaim it to who? Well, if we don't know, we're probably not going to do it. Proclaim it to who? Everybody. First of all, it's God's plan, according to Ephesians chapter 3 and verse 10, that when you become a Christian, that God's awesomeness be made known to the angels. The angels are watching us. They see us and they're interested in us. And one way that God shows His awesomeness to the angels is by showing them, look what I did with those people. They were lost. They were filthy. They were sinful. They were condemned. Look what I've made out of them. Now they're awesome. That's one way. We also proclaim God's awesomeness to each other. And we proclaim His awesomeness to the lost. That's really what this whole weekend is about. God has made you somebody special. Not for you. Not just for your benefit. God has made you somebody special so you can take what He has done and pass it on to those who are lost. That's why you exist. That is our mission statement. It's very plainly stated. Here's who you are. Here's what you're supposed to do. The only question is, am I doing it? That's the only thing we have to answer. God has plainly stated who we are, what we're supposed to be doing. The only question is, are you doing it, and am I doing it? I saw when y'all were out there playing games a while ago, I saw the same thing happen a couple of times. The instructions were very clearly stated. It was told to you exactly what you were supposed to do. Take off your shoe, put it in the circle. Run to the circle, find your shoe, put your shoe on in the circle, and then run back. And yet I heard being called out across the field over there by Ron, Jabari. You're supposed to put your shoe on in the circle. You have to come back because you messed it up. And Ron said, I specifically said this at the beginning of the game, do it in the circle. And you didn't. The instructions were clearly stated. What about that game? And I love that game. I could watch this game all day long. The Sailors thing, I could watch that all day long, man. I love that game. Instructions, even though Dean gave the instructions, they were very clearly stated. Even though it was from him, he did a good job of it for once, explaining what was supposed to go on, right? You knew exactly what you were supposed to do. Yet just about every time Dean said something, what happened? Somebody else was knocked out. Why? A lot of times it was just because you were messing it up. You were told what to do. You just messed it up. The same thing is true about this. 1 Peter chapter 2 is very, very plain. Here's who you are. Here's what you're supposed to do. The only question is, are you doing it? Are you doing it? And that's the question that each of us has to answer for ourselves. We're going to sing our song again one more time tonight. And while we're singing that song, each of us, myself included, needs to be asking ourselves, first of all, am I in that group of people we talked about? Am I part of that chosen race? If you're not, you know what you need to do to get in it. If you don't, we'll talk to you about it. But you need tonight to do what it takes to get into that group. I was talking to a young lady who's a friend of mine who's not a Christian, and she needs to be. She's old enough. She knows what she needs to do. She hears it all the time. And I said, do you know what you need to do? She said, yeah. She's 13. I said, why aren't you doing it? She said, because I'm not going to die anytime soon. I don't need to do it. I'm 13. I'm not going to be dying anytime soon. I can wait, put it off. And when, I get old, the implication was, like you, old man, when I get old like you, then I'll do it. Because I'm not going to die anytime soon. Does she know that? Does she know she's not going to die? Man, just on the way up here, I heard several news stories. A car plowed into a daycare center, killed a little, like a 4-year-old girl, I think. Some kids were killed at a school, teenagers. I mean, this happens all the time. You don't know that you're going to make it through the night. Whatever you've got planned for tonight, you don't know that you're going to make it there. Whatever you've got planned for tomorrow, you don't know that you're going to make it there. James talks about this in James chapter 4, and he says, you make all these plans, and you act like you know what you're going to do. You don't even know if you're going to be here. You don't know if you are going to leave this building and make it anywhere tonight. Don't think that because you're young, you can put it off because you may not have that opportunity. If you're not part of God's family, you need to do what it takes to get there. If you are part of God's family and you're not fulfilling the mission that we've talked about tonight, what can we do to help you start fulfilling that mission? That's why we're here. We want to help you. Don't leave tonight without talking to somebody about what you can do to start fulfilling God's mission statement for you. We'd love to talk to you after we're all done here. We'll go somewhere private and we can talk if you want to, or you can come forward up to the front as we sing the song we're about to sing.